All right, today I had mentioned that we are going to look at some more words on the keyword chart. We're going to be looking at that bottom half, the story narrative keywords. So sometimes in the English language, we use words that have implied operational meaning. They're not as straightforward. So for addition, you see a list here of some of those keywords. Now, again, this list does not have every keyword possible. As you find more operational words, feel free to jot them down. But some of these words, like deposit, deposit is when you go to the bank and you put in money into your account. So deposit has an implied operation of addition. Just kind of looking, it's kind of the same idea. Withdrawal for subtraction. Withdrawal is when you go to the bank and you take out money. So that would be, in a sense, applying the operation of subtraction. Multiplication is often keywords that people miss. They're a little bit more discreet. So the word of, often, just kind of a connecting word. But in math world and when we're looking to write expressions for things, of also can imply multiplication. Each, rate, per, and percent of, those are all multiplication type words. Division, if you cut something up into smaller parts, if things are shared equally, if you're splitting something between people, things like that represent division. So again, the more practice we have with it, I think the more confident you'll be with it. So let's take a look at some examples. All right, so again, I mentioned that sometimes we use words in the English language that imply operations beyond those basic terms that we've been looking at. Those are found in the bottom half of your resource chart. So we're going to be looking at words on the bottom here. So if we take a look at number 8, there are 7 blue cars, 12 red cars, and 5 white cars. Writing an expression below that shows how many cars were all together. So all together is, we started out with a little bit more of a basic term here. Altogether, I think a lot of you would realize is addition. So you're just looking to add. Now we're writing expressions. Okay, so we're not looking for an answer. We're writing a phrase or an expression that represents this scenario. So when we know that we're adding, we're going to go back and say, okay, what are we adding together? The number of cars that we have. So we've got 7 plus 12. Oh, that's a little rough there. 7, 12, and 5. So again, you're not solving it, you're just writing an expression. All right, how about number 9? Mandy has 36 cookies that she wants to share evenly with her friends. So share evenly is a key word that implies, and if you look down here, share equally, share evenly, kind of the same idea, but it would mean to divide. And sorry, I guess I'm kind of hiding my chart here. So it is under the division column. So what two things are we dividing? We're taking her 36 cookies and we're dividing it by 12. So again, you can use your division sign, or we in algebra often like to use that fraction bar to show division. So either one is acceptable. Number 10, a little bit more hidden. Joe gets paid $8.25 per hour. So here's our keyword, guys, per. Now, it's not as common, not as straightforward, or actually it is very common, but it's not as straightforward. A lot of times students miss that. Per means that we are going to multiply. And the reason being is that if you think about, if you were Joe and you're going to get paid $8.25 per hour, if you work 2 hours, you're going to make $8.25 plus $8.25, right? So sometimes people think it's addition, but it depends on how many hours he works. If he works 12, you're not going to go in your calculator. It doesn't make as much sense to say 825, 825 plus 825, 825. The quicker version is multiplication, because we know multiplication, it kind of replaces that repeated addition. So anytime you have an action where you're repeatedly adding the same amount over and over and over, that also should indicate to you that it is multiplication. And that keyword per. Per is very common to represent multiplication in the English language. So hopefully with more practice, it'll just become natural to you that that means to multiply. So to write it down, we'd have 825 times h. Now again, we want to stay away from the x because it represents a variable. So we could put our times h with a dot, or in math, we know a parenthesis can also indicate the operation of multiplication. So again, either one is fine. Just make sure to stay away from that x to represent your multiplying. All right, the last one here. On her biology exam, Jane got 17 out of 20 questions correct. So if we are looking to write an expression for this, here's our keyword, out of. And if we look down to our chart, out of is division. So what are we dividing? What two things? We have her score of 17 out of 20. So we would take 17 and divide it by 20. So again, we're not looking for any type of answer. You don't actually have to do the division. You're just writing an expression that shows the relationship between the numbers and or variables. So that last one there is 17 divided by 20. All right, so just like we looked at with basic phrasing, wording can also imply the need to use parentheses, just like, again, when we looked at those basic math phrases. Sometimes we actually do say those same blue words when we speak or describe scenarios. So just to kind of refresh, let me put this in front. Those blue words were sum, total, difference, product, and quotient. So again, when we saw those in the basic math phrases, we put parentheses around them because those were the processes we need to do first. So sometimes you're going to see these same blue words. We speak them. Total is very, very commonly spoke. You don't really hear people out there in the real world saying the word quotient. So sometimes that's something that you know, we don't hear as often. So sometimes if you don't see one of those blue words, you have to kind of just think about the process of the event to determine which event needs to take place first. So let's go through some examples so you can kind of see what I mean. So number 12, Johnny buys 10 packs of pencils at $1.25 each. Then he uses a coupon for $1 off. So looking at the problem, highlighting our keywords, Johnny buys 10 packs of pencils at $1.25 each. That's kind of our first part. Then here's the second part. Uses a coupon for $100 off. Off is kind of our second keyword there. So the word each, again, if I go to my keyword chart, means to multiply. Off would mean to subtract. So first he's going to buy the pencils. We would need to know the total of his pencil, kind of his bill first if he's at the store. Then you take off the coupon. So the first part is what's going to need to go in parentheses first. So this one, you just kind of have to think about the scenario. Think about your Johnny, you go into a store, you're going to get your total first. Then you use a coupon. And sometimes the word then kind of clues you into the order of operations as well and lets you know that, hey, something is happening first and we need to do that first before we move on to the next part. So what are we looking at for this first part? So he buys 10 packs of pencils at $1.25 each. We said that each was to multiply. So our first step is to write that, and we're going to put in parentheses because that's what needs to happen first. So 10 pencils, $1.25 each. Then we're going to use a coupon for $1 off. Now we said the word off means to subtract. So this second part, after we figured out his total, then we would subtract $1. So that would be the expression that represents this scenario. Number 13, a retail worker earns $9 per hour plus a holiday bonus of $50 in December. So good thing is, guys, is that typically we talk in left to right fashion, meaning that we kind of naturally say what needs to happen first and then add on the second or third operation. So a retail worker earns $9 per hour. Per, we know, is the key word for multiplication. So if I was looking to write an expression, we said it needs to be in parentheses. That's what happens first. We'd have $9 per hour. So $9. Again, we use multiplication, stay away from the X. So 9 times H. I'm going to put that in parentheses because we know that has to happen first. And then the second part of our problem here says plus a holiday bonus of $50 in December. So plus is kind of a more keyword that is straightforward, kind of more basic. So we add on $50. So again, this is your expression for that scenario. Okay, number 14, two more, guys. A party organizer determined the total price per person is $12, then adds on operation costs of $200. So the first part, again, the nice thing is that English language, we usually say what needs to happen first. So this first part is what's going to be in parentheses. There's also kind of that keyword then, meaning like, hey, this happens first, then we do the next part. So in our first set of parentheses, total price per person is $12. Our keyword is per. Again, I had mentioned that per is widely used for multiplication. So P times 12. You could also write it out as 12.00 times P, kind of like what we did up here with the $9 times H, but you could also shorten it to 12 times P. And remember, we have a variable and a number. They can buddy right up next to each other to show multiplication, so there's no need to put a dot. Then the last part of it said adds on an operational cost of $200. So straightforward, tells us to add. We're going to add on $200. All right, the last part. The total of popcorn, which is $1, and a movie ticket is $8.50, is doubled. So let's say you and a friend are going. We need to have that cost doubled. So the first part, again, says the total of popcorn and a movie ticket. Total, we know, is one of those key words that signify that we need parentheses. If I looked at my chart, total means I need parentheses. And I need parentheses because there's also another action here coming up. Actually, I cut off the price of the movie ticket there. So a total of popcorn, $1, a movie ticket, $8.50. That's what needs to go in our parentheses first. So I'd say $1 plus $8.50. You kind of imagine yourself, you're at the movies, you get popcorn and movie ticket, you would add those two costs together. Then I'm going to double it. And if you remember from our chart, doubled is one of those words. It was one of our more basic words, but it has an implied operation in number. So we would multiply that total by 2. We take this whole entire thing and we multiply it by 2. Whether you put the 2 at the back end or you put it in the front, either one, it would be acceptable. They would still be the same, because if you were going to solve this, you would be drawn to the middle first. That's why we use parentheses. We would add first and find out our total, then multiply by 2. So again, where you put the 2 is totally up to you. Either way would be acceptable if you put it in the back or the front. So you have 11 problems to try on your own. They have, the skill sets that we talked about, having those kind of more implied words, ones that you have to read into a little bit further, that are on the bottom section of your chart. And then there are also scenarios where you do need to put parentheses in. So again, there's 10, or I think there's 11 problems on your practice activity. I'm going to go ahead and flip to the next page here. Again, if you'd like to pull up the resource from the resource tab on the home page of our Canvas math class, by all means, go ahead and toggle back and forth on the screen. If you're a person that likes to take a picture so that you can easily access it while you're working on your worksheet, here's your opportunity. This is the chart that you would need. It's got the basic math phrases at the top, but more importantly, you're going to be looking at the bottom section for today's activity. Those story narrative keywords that are a little bit more less known. So good luck. Reach out if you need any help.